Welcome to the Science of Well-Being. I'm Jonathan Felix, and today we're exploring one of the most powerful tools for both physical and mental health, exercise. But before we dive into the research, I want to share a few stories that illustrate some things about exercise that the science alone can't capture. How movement becomes a pathway to discovering who you really are when you're ready to confront your shadows, your limitations, and every story you tell yourself about what's possible. As a kid, I wasn't athletic. I hated gym class. I was that skinny kid, the one last or second to last picked when choosing teams. Sports weren't my thing. When we moved to Los Angeles, I was in high school. I had two friends on the football team, Frank and Joe. Frank had a simple home gym, a bench, a bar, some dumbbells, nothing fancy. I tagged along. I was the smallest and weakest of the three, but I enjoyed lifting. I also ran track. I usually finished in the middle of the pack or next to last, but I enjoyed it and added running to my routine. And then things changed again when I got to college. What fascinates me now, looking back, is how my relationship with exercise kept evolving and how each evolution taught me something different about what movement could be. In college, with access to real gyms, my motivation shifted again. I was working out for camaraderie, for health, and to get girls, and it worked. I got a girlfriend. But when that relationship ended badly, all my insecurities came flooding back. I discovered something darker about what exercise could be. I was very angry. I just wanted to destroy. I wanted to destroy the vulnerable and gentle parts of myself, the poet, the mystic, the scholar. The breakup had triggered every insecurity I had about not being man enough. I harbored a deep disgust and hatred for a world that seemed to respect only violent masculinity. But if that's how it was going to be, I would transform my body into a weapon. I became an amateur boxer, then joined the Army Reserves after my sophomore year. I would do PT in the morning, then got permission from the company commander to continue my training at a boxing gym off base. I'd cycle there. I was in peak physical condition and training in the art of violence, using my body as a weapon. I harbored an anger that could kill, a rage that was capable of inflicting suffering. In the ring and on the battlefield, you learn to remain calm in a highly stressful situation. Before a fight, you learn to inhibit fear while staying alert and as relaxed as possible. When the bell rings, you maintain calm awareness while getting punched in the face. You learn to process pain without the overlay of mental chatter and noise. You're in the zone, in the present moment. And this was a dark period for me. I was bent on self-destruction. Before the breakup, I never had a sip of alcohol. I thought alcohol was for the weak. And I had seen it destroy many men. When those demons came out, the insecurities, the self-doubt, the shame, the self-disgust, I discovered that I could hold my liquor against any man and won the respect of men who measured my worth by my capacity for self-destruction. Even women seemed attracted to this darker version of myself. Many were drawn to the recklessness and danger instead of the gentleness I was trying so hard to destroy. And I hated all of them for it. But it taught me invaluable lessons about integrating the shadows, those vulnerable and exiled parts we all carry but rarely acknowledge, the shame, the insecurities, the trauma. But more than that, I learned that the very qualities I wanted to destroy, compassion, self-love, the capacity for deep feeling, they weren't weaknesses. Conformity is. And cowardice is hiding behind violence and rage because you're too afraid to face your own pain, too terrified of your own vulnerability. I learned that those virtues, which I've since reclaimed, were strengths that needed protection, not destruction. The anger taught me about power, and I was able to integrate that with compassion and purpose. Those lessons about managing strong emotions under extreme stress, about integrating both the warrior and the poet, have served me in every area of life since. After graduating, I became a teacher. I eliminated the vices. I wanted to model excellence in all domains: cognitive, physical, financial, creative, ethical, emotional. But I had work to do. I had no money, no car. I cycled everywhere, not by choice, but by necessity. Yet in that struggle, I found strength. What I didn't realize at the time was that exercise was becoming what researchers call a keystone habit, a single behavior that naturally triggers positive changes in other areas of your life. The discipline required for daily rides, regardless of whether or how I felt, strengthened my willpower in every domain. The mental toughness from pushing through fatigue made me a better teacher. At night, I cycled to graduate school to obtain my master's degree in education. Exercise created a positive feedback loop. As I cycled more, I naturally started eating better. My body craved nutrient-dense foods, not junk. I slept more soundly because I was physically tired in a healthy way. Better sleep improved my mood and decision-making. Better nutrition gave me more energy for longer rides. Each positive change reinforced the others, creating an upward spiral of improvement. So when you establish exercise as a keystone habit, it doesn't just improve your fitness, it cascades to better decision-making, improved self-control, and greater resilience. The same neural pathways you strengthen through physical challenge carry over into financial discipline, emotional regulation, and professional excellence. By cycling everywhere, I was building more than endurance and patience. I was constructing the foundation for transformation in every area of my life. One day, I met a cyclist at a light. He told me he had ridden from LA to Mexico. And I wish I had this brother's contact information because he changed my life. Something sparked. I wanted to test myself, but I was still missing the foundation for all success, the right mindset. I found an idea in a book by Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. He suggested using biblical verses as mantras. I'm a preacher's son, so this resonated with me. I chose, with God, all things are possible. Let me break this down. When I say God, I'm not talking about the wrathful God of the Old Testament or the cosmic Santa Claus who rewards or withholds blessings. I hold faith in the mystery and the intelligence and the power that arranges atoms into molecules, molecules into cells, cells into organisms, organisms into ecosystems. This is not a deity of tribal favoritism, but the intelligence behind matter, the organizing principle that shapes galaxies and governs the dance of subatomic particles, from the elegant spiral of DNA to the mysterious architecture of dark matter. That same power that ignites stars and orchestrates the migration of birds, that builds mountains and grows forests from seeds, that power flows through you and me. We're not separate from this intelligence. We're expressions of it. So with that power, all things are possible. And what do I mean by all things? I know I can't defy the laws of physics. I can't live forever in this body. But what the mind can conceive as possible, not wishful thinking, but genuine possibility, aligned with natural law, that becomes achievable. The same creative force that turned a single cell into the complexity of your brain can turn a vision into reality, a dream into experience, a seemingly impossible challenge into an accomplished fact. After repeating this mantra daily, it began to open up my mind to possibilities, and I decided to test it. I planned a bike ride to Mexico without maps, with little money, no reservations, just faith, 2 wheels, strong legs, and a mantra. It took me a few days, but I made it. Then I planned a 400-mile bike ride from LA to Oakland. In 4 days, $200. By day 1, I'd only covered 75 miles, and I had already spent about $100 on a hotel and food. Logic said, turn back, but faith pressed me forward. I remember that moment clearly. Reasoning made a linear case to return, but something deeper urged me to continue. And this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, "To trust thyself, every heart vibrates to that iron string," flashed in my mind. There was a verse from the Bible. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So I just made a little prayer, asked God to back me on this one, and I kept going. I made it to Oakland 3 days later with dollars to spare, and with a confidence and faith I never had before. I was living by faith. I put it into action. I then cycled America. I learned about inner and outer worlds, about what the body could endure when the spirit was strong. I cycled Europe from Venezia to Lisboa. In Puerto Rico, I rented a kayak, having never paddled before. I fell in love with the sport. When I got home, I had saved enough for a truck. I also bought a kayak. And I paddled California's Salton Sea, Lake Mead, where I learned to control fear, not by suppressing it, but by alchemizing it into meticulous planning, caution, and preparedness. Once I had a handle on that, I began kayaking to the Channel Islands, Anacapa, Santa Cruz, Catalina Island. Each crossing taught me something new about mental discipline and the power of focused intention. I also learned important lessons on money and value. I would train along the coast and paddle out of Marina del Rey. There were multi-million-dollar mega yachts moored there. floating palaces that cost more than most people's homes. And every week I'd launch my little kayak right past these symbols of extraordinary wealth. I didn't have that kind of money, but I had something far more valuable to me: time affluence and experiential wealth. While those beautiful yachts sat anchored, I was out there living every weekend in rhythm with the ocean, testing my limits and discovering what was possible. In Japan, where I lived and taught, I cycled all 4 main islands. I kayaked the Nagara River down to where it converges with the Ibi and Kiso rivers. I paddled Lake Biwa, hiked the Shikoku Trail, and I found joy and peace in using my body as a precision machine, discovering what was possible when I moved with intention and respect for both my capabilities and limitations. And during my divorce, anger and sadness consumed me, but I channeled these raw emotions into raw power. I was bench pressing 315, 450-pound squats. Then I ruptured my pectoralis tendon and learned another lesson. Even our strength has limits. And sometimes those limits teach us the most important lessons of all. So 3 years ago, when I turned 50, I wanted to celebrate the gift of 5 decades by giving myself 50 challenges. There were financial challenges, there were creative challenges, physical challenges. My son, who was 12 at the time, asked if I thought I could pass the Navy SEALs physical fitness test. And that question sparked something bigger. There are 5 or 6 elements to that test. I expanded it to 50 different military fitness standards from units around the world. Which brings me to something I'm excited to share. I've documented this entire journey, the protocols, the research, the setbacks, and the breakthroughs, in a book called Beyond Limits: A Father's Journey Through the World's Toughest Military Fitness Tests. It's the complete system that took me from struggling with basic standards to exceeding elite military benchmarks in my 50s. More importantly, it's a blueprint anyone can follow, whether you're 25 or 55, whether you're just starting or looking to break through plateaus. I did all of this without a lot of money. I'm an elementary school teacher who teaches innovation and technology. I'm not a fitness influencer. I don't take steroids or performance-enhancing drugs. My life is ordinary in many ways. But that's exactly why this matters. This is what's possible for regular people with regular resources at any stage of life. I learned one of the most important lessons during my sophomore year in college. I had 2 roommates, Frank and Stacy, who were severely disabled. Some people might think passing a fitness test designed for 23-year-olds at 53 is tough, but Frank and Stacy embodied ultimate toughness. A lot of us talk tough when we're young and healthy, but what happens when you lose that? Watching them redefine strength and resilience on their own terms showed me that true grit isn't about how much you can bench press or how fast you can run. It's about showing up every day with whatever capacity you have and refusing to let circumstance define you. Today, in my Science of Wellbeing classes, I see this truth lived out every week. The 80-year-old doing chair exercises with more enthusiasm than some 20-year-olds at the gym. The person recovering from surgery who finds joy in simply walking to the mailbox. This is why everything we'll discuss today comes with one fundamental principle. We do what we can with what we have, where we are. Some of the protocols I'll share might be perfect for you. Others might need modification. That's not just okay, it's the point. Your body's unique. Your circumstances are unique. And your approach should be too. So today we're going to start with the foundation, understanding how to train smart across different intensity zones and the complete system your body needs. Then we'll dive deep into the most exciting part, how movement literally rebuilds your brain. Finally, we'll explore how exercise can become whatever you need it to be. Therapy, exploration, challenge, adventure, prayer, self-discovery, or simply celebration of the remarkable gift of being alive in a body that can move. When you think about exercise, what comes to mind? Hitting the gym 3 to 5 times a week for an hour, maybe some cardio, some weights, maybe a class. Here's the problem. That approach is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human body actually works. The research consistently shows that successful fitness programs must address Not just strength and cardio, but 15 key elements working together. And it all starts with understanding how your body responds to different intensities. Your body has 3 distinct energy systems. System 1, or the anaerobic lactic system, is your 10-second power system. Think maximum deadlift. System 2, the anaerobic lactic system, is your 10 to 90 second strength endurance system. Think push-ups or sit-ups, pull-ups. System 3, your aerobic system, think distance running. Understanding these systems helps us train them effectively through different heart rate zones. Zone 1 is 50 to 60% of your max heart rate. It's like walking, gentle yoga, easy swimming. This promotes recovery and enhances your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your body's rest and digest mode. Zone 2 is 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. That's the fat-burning sweet spot. This is where you can hold a conversation while exercising. So you can think brisk walking or jogging, easy cycling. This zone provides 80% of cardiovascular benefits with minimal stress and injury risk. Zone 3 is 70 to 80% of your max heart rate. This is your aerobic threshold. Conversation becomes difficult, breathing noticeably increased. This is where most moderate exercise guidelines sit, that 150 minutes per week recommendation. Zones 4 and 5, that's 80 to 95% of max heart rate. This is the brain building zone. You're breathing heavily and can't hold a conversation. This is where the magic happens for brain health. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, increases 200 to 300%, and neurogenesis is enhanced. The evidence supports what's called polarized training model, or the polarized training model. 80% of your training in zones 1 and 2, which is easy to moderate, and 20% in zones 4 to 5, high intensity. So high intensity interval training and 4x4 intervals produce excellent results. The 4x4 protocol is any exercise that you can perform for 4 minutes at 85 to 95% max heart rate. You rest for 4 minutes and then repeat this 4 times. I do that with burpees, running and sprinting drills, and high intensity interval training or sets. But intensity is just one piece. A complete program addresses 15 key elements. I cover these in more detail in the book, but I want to group these in a way that makes sense. So you have the foundational elements. The first one's functionality, real-world movements in all planes. Olympic rings represent the ultimate in functional strength training. Unlike machines that lock you into predetermined movements, rings force your body to stabilize in 3 dimensions while you move. Every rep is a full body exercise because you're not just lifting, you're controlling instability. Your core, shoulders, and stabilizing muscles work overtime just to keep you steady. If you're shaking, you're working. The second is flexibility, muscle length, and relaxation. Think of stretching. The third is strength. And recent research shows 1 to 2 sets per muscle group, 2 to 3 times per week. And just power, explosive movement. Think plyometrics, or the box jump as an example of plyometrics. Then you have movement quality. Think of this as prehab, or preventing injury before it happens. So you have mobility, which is range of motion around joints. You have movement assessment, which is identifying dysfunctions and then fixing the imbalances. You have stability exercises, where you train to strengthen vulnerable areas. Think like ankle balance drills or core holds. You have pliability, which is tissue quality and recovery. Some tools include foam rollers, massages, and specific recovery protocols. There's balance. This degrades rapidly with age if not trained. Next, you have these integration elements. Things like coordination and agility, reactive training that challenges your nervous system, rest and recovery, active protocols, it's not just sleep. You have hydration. It's drinking half your body weight in ounces daily, more if you're sweating. And there's diet integration, timing nutrients around workouts, stress management. Exercise is stress management, periodization and program structure, which is systemic progression over time. I follow the 10% rule, which refers to gradual increases in volume, intensity, complexity, or duration by 2.5 to no more than 10%. There's also a period for deloading, roughly every 4 to 6 weeks. This is where you give your body a chance to recover. And supercompensation is another principle you might apply to your training. Your body essentially says that stress might happen again, so we'd better be ready. Your body doesn't just repair back to baseline, it overcompensates. Muscle damage is repaired, and the fibers become slightly stronger. Energy storage capacity increases, cardiovascular efficiency improves, and your performance peaks above your previous level. After suffering persistent Achilles tendonitis issues, I decided to take months off of running. And when I did resume, I started slowly, building back slowly, following that 10% rule I mentioned earlier. I also started modifying my runs with varied movement patterns, side straddles, backward running, lunges. And what this does is it breaks up the repetitive forward motion, which prevents the wear patterns that cause runner's knee or band issues or shin splints. Lateral movements activate the glutes and hip stabilizers that straight running ignores. Backward running works the hamstrings and calves differently than running forward. Quick direction changes improve reactive ability. Lunges build single leg strength and explosive capability. So these modifications transform running from a single plane, repetitive activity into complete movement practice that builds athleticism. I don't work out a lot. A lot of my exercise is integrated into my workday. I might cycle to work when possible. That's my commute and my cardio. I pace while I'm teaching. I average about 6 miles daily just through normal activity. I do mini sets between classes, sometimes with my classes, some pull-ups, some wall sits, different challenges that maintain capacity without requiring dedicated time blocks. So our bodies are designed to move throughout the day, not just during workout time. Our ancestors didn't work out. They moved because movement was life. Resistance bands are great tools. Shout out to Tom Brady for sharing this tip in his book TB12. Variable resistance enhances neuromuscular coordination. When you stretch a resistance band, it fights back more the further you pull. That means it's easier at the start, it's harder at the end of a movement. And bands increase tension through the range of motion, requiring the brain to dynamically adjust motor output. And resistance bands wobble, they pull in different directions, and that forces your body to pay close attention to posture, to balance, and muscle control, activating smaller stabilizer muscles that often get ignored. And over time, your body becomes more coordinated, stronger, and graceful. Because bands are less stable than machines or even dumbbells, they require conscious, fine-tuned control, training not just muscles, but attention, balance, and body mapping. Bands provide joint-friendly resistance. It gets harder the more you stretch them. So when you're just starting a movement, like the bottom of a squat or the beginning of a bicep curl, the band isn't pulling too hard. But as you get to the stronger part of the motion, the band pulls harder, giving you more resistance when your body can handle it. And this reduces injury risk and respects joint integrity. And the tension doesn't just drop off like with gravity-bound weights. That means eccentric control, or lowering the band, becomes a built-in requirement, leading to superior gains in control and tendon strength. You can move in diagonal, rotational, multiplanar patterns, the kind of movement the nervous system actually uses in daily life. And bands support both strength and movement literacy. So bands have a lower intimidation factor. Unlike heavy iron or gym machines, they feel more inviting, especially for beginners, older adults, or those recovering from injury. Bands allow you to practice mindful movement anywhere. The office, the garage, hotel room. They liberate movement from space-time constraints, reinforcing consistency, so you can train anywhere. And time under tension is longer with bands, often engaging stabilizers in smaller muscle groups, raising metabolic load when using lighter resistance. So when you use a resistance band, it keeps pulling the whole time. There's no resting point in the movement like there might be with weights. That means your muscles stay engaged longer on every rep, even with lighter resistance. So your body works harder overall, even without heavy weights. and that raises your metabolic load, meaning you burn more energy. Now, most workouts focus on up and down and forward and back, but bands let you pull sideways and diagonally, even with rotation, which activates a whole new set of muscles. And they allow you to target neglected vectors like the rotator cuff muscles, scapular retractors, lateral glutes, deep core stabilizers, enhancing structural balance and preventing overcompensation. So when these muscles are weak, your body cheats and other muscles overwork to compensate, which leads to tightness and pain and injury over time. Bands train the quiet muscles, restoring balance to your entire system. Here's what the latest research reveals. Exercise isn't just changing your body, it's rebuilding your brain structurally for the better. And recent discoveries will change how you think about movement. The scientific evidence now shows exercise as the most powerful single intervention for brain health, with groundbreaking discoveries that explain exactly how and why movement transforms your mind. Scientists discovered that when you exercise, your body produces something called beta-hydroxybutyrate, a ketone body that crosses the blood-brain barrier and directly activates BDNF gene expression. Think of BDNF as brain fertilizer. It promotes the growth of new brain cells, protects existing neurons, and creates new neural connections. And here's what's revolutionary. This pathway works even when you're not in ketosis, even when you have normal glucose levels. Exercise literally produces its own brain-building compound. Your brain is growing new cells. So for decades, scientists believed adult brains couldn't do this, couldn't grow new neurons. We now know that's completely wrong. Exercise increases new neural formation in your hippocampus, your brain's memory center, by approximately threefold. These aren't just any cells. They're specifically located in the area responsible for learning and memory formation. After a single exercise session, BDNF levels increase by 33 to 38%. And these aren't small changes. These are massive biological shifts happening in your brain every time you move intensely. Structural brain changes include hippocampal volume increase of 1 to 2%. So your brain is literally getting bigger in the areas that matter most for memory and learning. Advanced neuroimaging shows these changes can persist for up to 5 years, even after you stop exercising. So here's where the intensity zones we discussed earlier become crucial. A landmark 2024 meta-analysis of 20 randomized controlled trials found that high-intensity interval training significantly outperforms moderate exercise for information processing, executive function, memory formation, cognitive flexibility. The validated protocol that produces maximum brain benefits is 4 cycles of 4 minutes at 85 to 95% maximum heart rate, followed by 3 minutes recovery, performed 3 times weekly. That's just 30 minutes total, including warm-up, producing these great benefits compared to longer, moderate intensity sessions. It's not just about memory. Exercise creates what researchers call stress inoculation. When you do high-intensity exercise, you produce acute cortisol spikes that actually suppress your stress response to psychological challenges for up to 15 days. So you're training your brain to handle stress better. This cross-stressor protection means that physical challenge makes you more resilient to mental and emotional challenges. The prefrontal cortex, which is your brain's CEO, gets stronger and better at regulating emotions and making decisions under pressure. A comprehensive 2024 analysis analyzed nearly 100 meta-reviews and found exercise produces 42 to 60% reduction in mental health symptoms compared to 22% to 37% for psychotherapy or medication alone. This isn't exercise as a nice addition to mental health treatment. This is exercise as a first-line therapy. The evidence now supports prescribing exercise before or alongside traditional treatments for depression and anxiety. The research reveals no absolute threshold, but minimal clinically relevant dose is about 150 minutes of moderate exercise weekly or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise weekly. The benefits plateau, so more isn't always better. But here's the key. Higher intensities produce stronger benefits in shorter time frames. So you don't have to wait weeks to see brain benefits. Exercise sessions under 30 minutes produce stronger acute cognitive improvements than longer durations, with peak effects occurring 30 to 60 minutes post-exercise. This means your next meeting, your next creative project, your next learning session are all enhanced by the workout you did an hour ago. Multi-component training takes the crown. Network meta-analyses show that combining aerobic, resistance, and balance training produces the greatest cognitive benefits. And here's something interesting. Dance emerges as uniquely effective, engaging multiple brain networks simultaneously and showing superior psychological benefits. And dance is one of my favorite exercises for improving mobility and balance. One of my 50 challenges was to learn 50 different genres of dance from 50 different countries. When you dance, you're not just moving, you're processing music, you're coordinating complex movements, you're making split-second decisions, and often interacting socially. Your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. And it's never too late to start. The effects are particularly pronounced in older adults who show larger effect sizes for temporary improvements and greater protection against brain aging. Middle-aged adults benefit most from working memory enhancements, and young adults primarily see processing speed improvements. The key insight is this: your brain remains plastic throughout your entire life. Your workout is literally reshaping your neural architecture. And perhaps most remarkably, benefits persist up to 5 years after exercise ends. The structural brain changes provide lasting cognitive protection that distinguishes exercise from other interventions. So you remember those 3 energy systems we talked about? Each one provides distinct brain benefits. System 1, power, enhances decision-making speed and cognitive flexibility. System 2, the strength and endurance system, improves sustained attention and working memory. And System 3, the aerobic system, builds overall brain volume and connectivity. This is why the complete program we outlined earlier isn't just good for your body, it's optimizing your brain across multiple dimensions. Research conclusively establishes exercise as the most effective single intervention for brain health optimization. When you move your body with intensity and intention, you're literally becoming more yourself, more capable of learning, more resilient to stress, more able to regulate emotions and make clear decisions. And that brings us to something deeper than just biology. The science tells us exercise rebuilds our brains, but it can't capture something equally profound. What happens when you move with complete presence and intention? This is where exercise transcends mere physical training and becomes something sacred. In contemplative circles, we often focus on transcending the body, but perhaps the deeper wisdom is learning to inhabit it fully. When you move with complete presence, the distinction between body and mind dissolves. This is embodied awakening, finding the sacred in the sweat, the divine in the discipline, the infinite in the immediate. Body is temporary, yeah, I get that. But it's also the only vehicle you have for this lifetime. To move it with reverence is to honor the mystery that made it. Many wisdom traditions already understood this. Shaolin monks developed martial art forms from Buddhist principles. Next week, I'm flying to Los Angeles to facilitate a retreat at a Brazilian jiu-jitsu studio. All martial arts have Buddhist roots. In the Hindu tradition, you have yoga, dance, spiritual practice. In Islam, the Sufi mystics whirl their way to ecstasy. Movement has always been a pathway to the transcendent. Let me share how this plays out in my own practice. When I emerged from that valley of darkness, I returned to my Christian roots in meditation training. I would listen to recordings by a Zen master named Shinzen Young. I also followed Thich Nhat Hanh and trained to be present in everything. A Buddhist practice, walking meditation, and I extended this to running and swimming, cycling and lifting weights. When I cycle long distances, those 3,000 miles across America, for example, the rides to all 4 main islands of Japan, something shifts. The rhythm of pedaling becomes meditative. The breath synchronizes, the mind quiets. To move with reverence is to embody devotion. Exercise becomes prayer, walking becomes pilgrimage. And I did a 700-mile pilgrimage in Japan, and I'm planning to hike the Compostela in the next year or two, God willing. Each step becomes an offering of gratitude for this remarkable gift of embodied existence. And over the years, I've distilled this approach into 4 practical principles. The first is present moment awareness. You focus completely on the movement. You feel each muscle contraction. You notice your breathing rhythm. You observe how your body moves through space. As Shinzen Young emphasized, this complete attention transforms ordinary movement into contemplative practice. There's no mental space for yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's worries. There's only this moment, this breath, this movement. That's the gift of intense physical challenge. It demands complete presence. Then there's breath integration. Coordinate breathing with movement deliberately. In strength training, there are bracing techniques, exhaling on exertion, inhaling on the return. In yoga, qigong, and tai chi, all of which I practice, are breath-led movement. When running, find your natural rhythm and stay connected to it. The breath is always available as an anchor. When you're pushing your limits and the mind wants to quit, return to the breath. It connects you to something larger than the discomfort of the moment. Breathing nasally is also better than breathing through the mouth. There's a world-class sprinter named Sha'Carri Richardson, who's one of the few sprinters who breathe nasally. Another mindfulness technique is the body scan. During rest periods, quickly scan the body. Notice areas of tension, fatigue, or energy. This builds what researchers called interoceptive awareness, your ability to sense internal states. It's a skill that enhances both physical performance and emotional intelligence. In those military fitness tests I document in Beyond Limits, this body awareness became crucial. You learn to distinguish between discomfort and actual danger, between the mind's desire to quit and the body's real limitations. Then you have non-judgmental observation. When you notice fatigue, discomfort, or the desire to quit, observe these sensations without immediately reacting. Simply witness. You notice tiredness as tiredness. You notice resistance arising. This builds mental resilience that transfers to all areas of life. It allows you to notice sensations without labeling them as good or bad. It just becomes a signal, and you learn to mind those signals. You also learn that the mind often quits before the body does. Ego transcendence is another benefit. Intense exercise naturally dissolves ego boundaries. Buddhists meditate on the 5 remembrances. I'm of the nature to grow old. I cannot escape old age. I'm of the nature to get sick. I cannot escape sickness. I'm of the nature to die. I can't escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. This includes your health, your youth, your strength, your vigor, and your mobility. And the 5th remembrance, I inherit the results of my actions of body, speech, and mind. So in contemplative circles, we seek balance. We take care of the body, but do not obsess over it as many of us in the West do. Within this vessel pulses something mysterious and beautiful. And there's a verse I love, "Know ye not that ye are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God is in you?" There's a poem by Basava, a Hindu mystic, who wrote, "The legs are pillars, the body a shrine, the head a cupola of gold. But like all temples made of stone, it returns to dust in the end. What dances within you is something beautiful waiting to be discovered, but we often make idols out of the temple itself." Exercise is much more pleasant when performed without attachment, without ego, and mindfully. And when you're pushing your limits, there's no mental space for self-criticism or comparison. You enter what psychologists call the flow state. I experience this regularly. Time distorts, concentration becomes effortless. There's a sense of transcending normal limitations. This state is inherently contemplative. You're fully present, non-judgmental, and connected to something larger than your everyday concerns. So mindful movement is a celebration. I often think of Tomihiro Hoshino, the Japanese poet and painter who became paralyzed while demonstrating a gymnastics exercise to his students. He continued creating art with a brush held in his mouth for 50 years, painting watercolors of flowers and writing poetry about life's beauty. And his perspective reminds us that every moment Every movement is a gift, worthy of reverence. Every step, every breath, every gesture. These aren't mundane activities, but miracles we've learned to ignore. And the mindful approach changes how you integrate movement throughout your day. When I pace while teaching, those 6 miles daily through normal activity, I'm not just staying active. I'm practicing presence, connecting with my breath, honoring the gift of movement. And those mini sets between classes become moments of gratitude, not just physical maintenance. So here's how to bring this contemplative dimension into your own practice. You start workouts with intention. Set an intention beyond just physical goals. If you're swimming, for example, maybe it's feeling how water flows across your lower back, or just the fluidity of the movements. When I'm cycling, I might focus on the movement of one foot, and the ankle, and the knees, and eventually scan the whole body. You might take a brief moment of gratitude for your body's capability. You can also use the breath as an anchor during challenging moments. When your mind wanders, gently return attention to the movement. Notice the difference between discomfort and pain. You can end with reflection, expressing gratitude for the body's capabilities, acknowledging what you've accomplished, taking a brief moment of stillness to integrate the experience. You can also reframe limitations, view physical limitations as teachers, not obstacles. Every can't becomes can't yet or can differently. Remember that adaptation and growth happen at the edge of discomfort. In Beyond Limits, when I tackled those 50 military fitness standards, the physical challenge was just the surface. Each test became a conversation with my limitations, my fears, my assumptions about what was possible. The test wasn't just about push-ups and pull-ups. It was about discovering who I become when everything feels impossible. When you approach exercise this way, every workout becomes an inquiry. Who am I when I'm tired? How do I respond to discomfort? What stories do I tell myself about my limitations? Can I find peace in the midst of challenge? These aren't just philosophical questions. They're practical explorations that reveal patterns that carry over into every area of life. When you move mindfully, you're not just exercising your body, you're practicing presence, cultivating resilience, and honoring the remarkable gift of embodied existence. Every workout becomes a form of moving meditation. Every rep, a prayer of gratitude for the miracle of movement itself. This is why I say your body isn't just a vehicle for your consciousness. It's an integral part of your being. When you honor it through mindful movement, you're not just building strength or improving cardiovascular health, you're literally reshaping your relationship with yourself and the world. As we conclude today's exploration, I want to leave you with a few stories that capture what I believe is the deepest truth about the human body and our relationship to it. Because sometimes the most profound insights come not from research papers, but from moments that reveal what we've been taking for granted all along. The first is a story by the Argentine poet and singer Facundo Cabral. It's called Dios y el Zapatero, or God and the Shoemaker. I'm going to translate it and tweak it just a little. So in the story, God assumes the form of a wanderer. He stops at the home of a cobbler and knocks on his door. When the shoemaker opens the door, the wanderer says, "Sir, I've been walking for days and the soles of my shoes are worn. I don't have any money on me, but would you do me the kindness?" The shoemaker says, "I'm tired of people asking me for something without giving me something back in return." So the stranger says, "I don't have money on me now, but I can give you what you need to be happy." The shoemaker looks incredulous because the bearded wanderer looks disheveled. Doesn't look like he has any money. You got $1 million I need to be happy? I can give you that in exchange for something. In exchange for what? Says the shoemaker. I can give you $1 million, the stranger says, in exchange for your legs. The shoemaker laughs. What would I do with $1 million if I can't walk? I can't travel. I can't hike with my kids. I can't even stand to grab my tools. All right, fair enough, the stranger says. How about 50 million for your arms? Are you crazy? I couldn't hug my children, can't work, couldn't even feed myself. stranger makes one final offer. 1 billion for your sight. The shoemaker steps back. I'd never see my children's faces again. I'd never watch the sunset. Never read to them at bedtime. All the money in the world couldn't replace that. The stranger's eyes twinkled. My friend, you just turned down to over $1 billion. You already possess a fortune beyond measure, yet you walk around telling yourself you have nothing. There's another true story that left a profound impression on me. Christopher Reeve had everything the world admires: fame, talent, Hollywood good looks, youth, and physical strength. As Superman, he embodied invincibility. Then, in an instant, a riding accident, everything changed. He was paralyzed from the neck down and was dependent on a ventilator for every breath. For years, machines kept him alive. Each breath was mechanical. Then came a breakthrough that made international headlines. Christopher Reeve took a single breath on his own. One breath. The world celebrated this miracle. Newspapers, TV stations, medical journals all covered this extraordinary achievement. A single unassisted breath became front page news. Yet every day, each of us takes approximately 20,000 breaths. We breathe while working, sleeping, arguing, worrying about tomorrow. We breathe while doom scrolling on our phones, while stuck in traffic, complaining about trivial inconveniences. 20,000 gifts a day, and we notice exactly 0. Right now, as you're listening to this, your lungs are expanding effortlessly. You're being breathed. Your heart is beating without conscious thought. Your body's performing thousands of functions that keep you alive, healthy, and capable. Christopher Reeve taught us that what we consider ordinary is actually extraordinary. Every breath you take today is a headline worthy of celebration, if only you choose to notice. And last story. When I taught programming and robotics, I spent my days teaching students to build machines that can perform simple tasks. I want to program a robot to open a water bottle, prepare for months of complex engineering. First, there's a vision system. We need cameras, image processing algorithms, machine learning models to even recognize what a bottle is. Thousands of lines of code just to distinguish a bottle from a cup or a phone. And the computational power required rivals what sent humans to the moon. Then comes the manipulation challenge. The robotic hand needs pressure sensors, multiple motors, precise calibration. We program finger positioning algorithms, grip force calculations, torque distribution across joints. A simple twist and pull motion requires dozens of sensors working in perfect coordination, running hundreds of calculations per second. Even then, a robot might succeed 60% of the time on a good day. It can't adapt if the bottle's wet, or the cap is slightly different, or the lighting changes. One small variable we didn't program for, and the whole system fails. Meanwhile, the 3-year-old walks up and opens a bottle without thinking. No programming, no algorithms, no conscious calculation of grip force or joint angles. Your brain processes visual information faster than our most advanced computers. Your hand contains more sensors than our most sophisticated robots. Your nervous system coordinates movements with precision that our best engineers struggle to replicate. What you call just opening a bottle represents millions of years of evolution, billions of neurons firing in perfect synchronization. A masterpiece of biological engineering that we're only beginning to understand. So every time you pick up your coffee, you tie your shoes, you execute a yoga pose, you're performing feats that represent the cutting edge of what human technology can barely achieve. You are a walking miracle of engineering that makes our most advanced robots look like simple toys. So the next time you move your hand, remember, you're operating the most sophisticated machine ever created. So here's my challenge for you. Start small, start today. We do what we can with what we have, where we are. Whether you're doing chair exercises or training for military fitness standards. Bring the same mindful awareness to movement. Whether you have 5 minutes or 50, honor the remarkable gift of embodied experience. So thank you for joining me on this exploration of exercise as a path to well-being. The best exercise is the one you actually do. So don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait until you feel motivated. If you want to dive deeper into the complete system I've developed, including detailed protocols and the full journey through military fitness standards, check out Beyond Limits, a father's journey through the world's toughest military fitness tests. It's available on the TensoX website. Thank you for tuning into The Science of Wellbeing. I'm Jonathan Felix, and I'll see you next time.